I mean, how do I describe it? It's
Bold,
A light,
black,
unapologetically black.
Very funny, amusing,
caring,
You give great advice from a different perspective. Passionate,
free.
vulnerable,
a creative,
sexy.
My girl is lit as fuck.
Always ready to spark a little something.
genuine, very genuine,
resilient.
like sixth sense, otherworldly. If you know, you know.
It's so vibrant, baby. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Soul Vibrant, the place where music, history, and culture collide. I am your cultural storyteller and award-winning host, Lady AC. For today's episode, it is the final week of Hoodoo Heritage Month, and technically there are a couple more days, but next week we'll be in a whole new month by the time my podcast come back around. So I wanted to use this week to kind of sum up and bring everything to a wonderful conclusion. This has definitely been an amazing journey to reveal and share with you all. Really just expressing the importance of not only Hoodoo Heritage Month, but just heritage months and cultural months like these and why they are so valuable, especially for us as Black folks. In a time where all these oppressive systems throughout our entire existence have really been trying to disconnect us, take away our identities, to strip us away from our culture, literally teach us or tell us we don't have one. And what our people, the people we come from, have done with such resilience, such fight, such an act of survival by encouraging ourselves, by uplifting ourselves with healing and good luck and good fortune, and honoring those who paved the way for each of us to be here, such through practices such as ancestral veneration. That is so disheartening when you hear certain spaces of our community, in particular what's been going on in the social media streets, is that a lot of religious influencers or people of the Christian faith have really been talking negatively, to say the least, of people practicing outside of the religion they believe is true or they believe is right, and calling things such as ancestor veneration demonic, or calling hoodoo evil and dangerous, and really playing up a lot of the myths that were taught to us by these very oppressive systems to keep us in control. Especially when you look at the history of hoodoo and how in its roots it began in the continent of Africa. You know, shout out to the Congo people who, if it wasn't for them at all, we wouldn't even have hoodoo that we know of. I mean, you know, with me doing the episode with Mama I in New Orleans, I mean, they have a whole thing called the Congo Square where they highlight importance of those people and the cultural richness and the ceremonies that the voodoo took place and the hoodoo happened. And so you have to reckon with that cultural significance and that importance to us. So that's why today's episode is so special, because the ancestor I have chosen to venerate today sits at the intersection of all of that. Because this ancestor in particular isn't hoodoo at all. He's actually a very devoted Christian. But in our relationship and in connecting with him, he, inspired by his Christian faith and his love of God, pushed me and encouraged me thoroughly to embrace the gifts that I had within the hoodoo practice, within the veneration, within our connection and relationship, to create one of the most powerful works I have today. And his name was Mack Miller. all the way back to season 1, I did an episode called Ode to Mack Miller Park, where I talked about the history of a little known Black only park that happened and existed within my hometown. That was a source of joy during a time of segregation. Just learning all about him and about that park was very special and connected, but I didn't realize how exactly connected it truly was until I started going on that journey. I'm going to leave you with that little cliffhanger because I got to introduce you into my Uncle Mack Miller's energy with a musical break. So keep that in mind now. Okay? So we're going to take this amazing musical break and I'll be right back.
Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Jean-Ray Cherie Price.
Is there anybody here who wants to be set free? Is there anybody here who's tired of being deceived? Is there anybody here who truly believes that they can be exactly what the Lord designed them to be? Yeah. Is there anybody here who can tell you a story? Is there anybody here whose testimony's a success story?
And that was independent artist Sean Ray Price with No Longer the Same. I told y'all Uncle Mack is a devoted Christian, so he loved him some gospel music. I had to hit y'all with the gospel joints today. And what he loves so much about gospel is the call and response aspect of it. Because if you listen to Sean Ray in the chorus, she repeats it over and over and over and over. And to just a regular ear, that may sound just repetitive, but in the space of when we think about manifestation and we think about meditation and affirmations and how we have to repeat these words and say them to ourselves to build ourselves up, to connect with ourselves, it works in that same way. And that's something that's so universal throughout the entire diaspora of our people. Of course, within the church, that's called calling on the name, putting power in the name, In hoodoo, that is speaking life into something, setting the intention, all the way to the motherland, where in the various different tribes and kingdoms, call and response was calling in our power, was calling on the different gods and deities or whatever spirituality the different people were practicing, but in those, using that to connect us and keep us rooted with that culture. So you see all the connections within that leading to now me and him shared that understanding, which makes it a very beautiful segue into today's episode, where I am throwing it back but taking a very special look at my episode of Ode to Mack Miller Park, and in that venerating my ancestor Mack Miller. So to be candid with y'all, when I started Soul Vibrant, that episode was actually supposed to be the pilot. That was supposed to be the episode that set the intention, that had shaped and molded the entire, what the podcast was going to be. Like, that was the voice and the content I was going after and I was going to do. But as I started to research and really dive into it, I thought initially, of course, it was going to take more time, because I'm literally covering something that wasn't really documented. Like, outside of 2 blog posts that were like a page together, there wasn't much out there about this park, about its history, about anything existed. I literally had to basically unearth a lot of the information and things that I found. I would be the first documenting this information. So I had that, and then also learning that it was so connected to my ancestry, with Mack Miller being in my family tree. So I had that. So I knew it was going to take more time, but what I wasn't prepared for and didn't expect was how closely tied to my spiritual journey it was. The most powerful thing about my spiritual journey, and what I have grown into knowing of it and being guided by my ancestors that I talked about within these past weeks, is that I learned how to connect to my own power. And in learning how to connect to my own power, I was able to really dig deep within myself and discover different things and reconnect with things that were already there. And sometimes that can lead you to discover specific gifts that are for you, or that were passed to you for you to carry out the work that you're meant to do. For instance, with Sajisi, from week 1, her gift was storytelling and her wisdom. To John Henry, he had the hammer, but then he also had the gift of touch and Reiki, and really expanding on love and balance, leading to his mother, Mama I. Well, the reason we call her Mama I is because it's tied to her gift. Mama I was a seer, And I'm talking deeper than fortune telling and reading tea leaves or doing tarot cards, even though she could do all that. But she could brush up against you, hug you, hold your hand, look you in your eyes, and be able to tell you your destiny. She could tell you where you were going to fail, what you needed to overcome, what you were going to achieve, who you were going to meet, who was going to leave. Like, she knew all those details from beginning to end. And that's why so much of her work, she wanted to empower people and make sure they were able to connect with themselves. And that also applied when it came to guiding and teaching me. Honestly, all my ancestors, when it came to me, all of them were ensuring that I was able to guide and navigate the different things I was learning about myself. And in that, I ended up discovering my gift. And that was the gift of clairvoyance. That I could communicate, see, interact with, and talk to spirits. And it turned out that I had this gift all my life. That somewhere along the line of my life, I got disconnected from it. And that with me opening myself back up spiritually, and then of course getting into hoodoo again, brought me back to it. So when it came to doing the project of Mack Miller Park and learning that history and doing the research, a lot of comments I kept getting was anyone who remembers it would either be an elder or they passed away. My ancestors would be in my ear like they passed away. You can talk to them. Oh, they passed away. That means use your gift. Do it. And I remember just being like, having very, very strong reservations, obviously, because at this point I'm still getting used to having my own gift, but I also hadn't got used to using it in the wild, per se, out in the open like that. And I also had reservations because of past experiences with using my gift. Now, you don't have to be hoodoo or not, but anytime you engage in ancestral veneration, understand that your ancestors, just like us throughout the diaspora, throughout our own communities, throughout our own families, all of us have our own individual experiences, including down to us all believing in very different things, us having very different upbringings. And of that, there is a possibility that the way in which you are moving, with you are believing in, or for instance, in my case, during the time I was making the episode, I didn't know it was hoodoo yet. But I was on that road, but I didn't know what to call it. But they knew. My ancestors knew. And there were some ancestors who were Christian in my bloodline that did not like that. They didn't associate with that. So when I started to do the ancestor veneration, connecting with them using my gift, sounded just like the people who I talked about at the episode, judgmental and saying it was demonic and it was evil and I shouldn't be doing that. And it cut deep. It hurt to be rejected in that way. Luckily, I had some ancestors who roared at dawn for me. Matter of fact, I had an ancestor tell that ancestor off so bad, still to this day, that ancestor apologizes for saying that initially. And so as a result, I was very weary of using and engaging my gift when it came to doing this project. But what I love is that even through that hesitation, they're like, we're right here. We got you. Regardless of how this goes, this is in you. You can do this. And so I can even admit that I was hesitant when it came to me connecting with Mack Miller, because knowing he was a Christian and having a very strong faith. I mean, when he was alive, he was a deacon of the church. So I was very nervous. But to my very pleasant surprise, he really opened my eyes to not necessarily do the same thing that was done to me, to judge a book by its cover, to automatically write off somebody just because of their beliefs or how they carried themselves. Because it really came down to not just what they believe, but their own character and how they carried themselves. Especially these Christian influencers now that demonize ancestor veneration and any other practice outside of what they're taught is the true religion, which for them is Christianity. They also are the same ones saying that, I'm Christian before I'm black, or my blackness has nothing to do with my faith, and all these different kind of things. And for Mack Miller, it's the complete opposite. Matter of fact, his faith emboldens his blackness. He knew based on his faith, and he believed this. He even said this when we were doing the research and having our conversations and stuff, that he believed that God didn't design the Negro to be second class, that he designed us to be just as successful as anyone. He spent a lot of the work that he did with really engaging with the black community, making sure that they believed in themselves, that they knew that they were worthy, that they knew they were self-efficient and could be innovative and creative and know about ownership, having their own properties and being in control of themselves and their lands and their families, and that God wanted it that way. He also welcomed the gift that I had. He thought it was very powerful. He's like, this is God's truth of you. If anything, this proves the power that he has by giving you that. So why would you not use it? Why would you be ashamed to use it? Don't you dare let these naysayers or these fake believers, that he said, there's his words, I find, make you turn away from the greatness that God is clearly showing you. And so, y'all, be honest, after being filled like that, who am I to doubt anything? Like, I was like, wow, that really, knocked me back aligned. It actually reminded me of going back historically to ancient Africa. Because one of the things that's also used to manipulate people when it comes to religion and spirituality is a lot of people say, well, Christianity was in Africa too. And yes, it was. But of that, they also knew how to do both Christianity and the traditional African spirituality at the same time and have respect for both of those being utilized. Through the transatlantic slave trade and surviving that and coming into the Americas where they can no longer do the traditional religions of their people. It was actually not that hard to integrate certain practices and use Christianity as a cover to practice their different religions. So for instance, looking at hoodoo, how hoodoo and a lot of the different elements that we see within the black church, that was ancestral. They knew how to do that from the beginning. So now fast forward to me using this gift, and in comparison with the faith that I was on versus the faith that Mack Miller had, he was able to see that both of these had room to exist. Both of these were valuable. Both of these could get things done and achieved. That all of us can do more than just coexist, but us literally can thrive and interchange and really bleed. But what is the problem is when religion is under this control and this dichotomy that keeps telling people that they have to act a certain way, live a certain way, this is the only way. And it leads so many people with this restrictive or judgmental or hateful kind of way. That brought me closer to the work, that brought me closer to myself, that brought me closer to him, Mack Miller. It brought me closer to the people that I was learning to connect with. And honestly, that just showed how he learned how to do that. Because when he was alive, he interacted with people from different faiths. He knew how to communicate with somebody with a different background than he was, through his work as a chauffeur and an ambulance driver. He would drive or interact or communicate with different people. When he started and opening his business at the funeral home, he knew how to cater to the needs of people because he knew how to talk to them. He knew how to understand and listen to them, how to make space for them. So it made sense that when we started working together, he had that same kind of cadence, that same kind of understanding. And it made more sense that asking about him through different family members or the research I found, and they would say how he left such an impression on these ancestors, on these descendants of his. Like, for instance, my great grandmother, who is Mack Miller's niece, she named my grandfather after him because he just meant that much to her. And according to my grandfather, asking about him and learning about him, that she will consistently talk about him and how they, were motivated, and how he will always give advice and always be there and always be supportive. And I've heard that from other family members. It just all came full circle and validated and really made us trust each other more. Another thing about connecting with Mack Miller was it reminded me of how protected I was and how so many of my ancestors truly did have my back. Because like I said in Mama I's episode, that all my ancestors that I mentioned in this episode are connected. And, I gave you the lineage about, Mama GC to John Henry to Mama I being John Henry's mother. But Mack Miller is also in that same line, because what I noticed was that all of these individuals are on my paternal side, or just put it plainly, all on my father's side of my ancestry. And this is also the same side where I wasn't that connected to. In the Road to Mack Miller episodes, because I did a part 1, part 2 leading up to Ode to Mack Miller Park, I spoke very candidly about how this opened up wounds about not having a connection to that side. So I found it very ironic that a lot of the ancestors that I was interacting with, that I was connecting with, all of them were from that side. So really kind of making up for the fact that while I wasn't connected with that they picked up that slack and came in and swooped in and were like, no, this side got you too. And we're here to represent that. And honestly, Mack Miller fell in line with that just as simple as they did. So as I went on this road of gathering information, of setting up interviews, of searching, and I swear I drove to every archive in the state of Georgia and looked at every newspaper, every microfilm. So I went into this project really feeling like I had some warriors behind me, that regardless of what could happen, I'm going to get this done. I remember in particular, I went to this newspaper archive, and they had like wall to wall of newspapers, and they did it per year, like heavy books of newspapers from yesteryear and earlier and all that. And so I remember I walked in, they were like, okay, well, what year are you looking for? And I'm like, oh, well, actually, I'm looking. So the park existed between 1954 to 1979. And they're like, well, we literally got every year. So which one do you want? And so I remember, well, I guess I just started at the beginning. And so I told them to pull 54 and 53. Because just in case, you never know. So I pulled those two down first. As I'm sitting there at the table about to choose which one should I start with first, 54 kept looking at me. At this point, I'm looking for pictures, articles, proof of the park. Because at this point, there are no pictures. There's no advertisements, nothing at that point. I was able to find a map of the layout near the park, but that's all I had. But it was the right direction. But I was like, I know somebody talked about the opening of this park. Somebody took a picture. Something happened. And so, like I said, I hit the book 1954, just kept jumping at me. So I opened it. And I just couldn't remember to flip through. And it's literally for the entire year, y'all. So I'm flipping through this book. And I hear a voice tell me, keep going. Keep going. Not yet. It's there. You almost there. Almost there. And I'm telling y'all, I'm getting tired looking through this book. And right at that moment, I flip the page. And I see on front page news an advertisement about the park. And who invested what money and when it was going to open. It was front page news in 1954 in August. And I was like, okay. Okay. Y'all let me hear. Okay, cool. So that was one instance. Another instance that they had my back was when I was actually learning about Mack Miller himself. I learned that in an article that he was buried in a segregated cemetery for the city. And that's an interesting history because the cemetery in my hometown, when it actually caught national attention because it was still considered segregated as of 2013. And it was listed in the article that he was buried there. So I wanted to find his grave. Just happened to drive out there. Couldn't went that far. Like maybe like a 5-minute drive maybe. So I went out there. And so literally there's a road in the middle and it's got, what's considered the white side, what's considered the black side. And for those who don't know, I did a video about this on my IG. So if you want to check out the video and see the segregated cemetery, what it looks like now today, tagged on my page. But anyways, the black side of the cemetery is literally down a hill. And so I'm like, well, I'm gonna find this gravesite. And I remember as I was walking through the gravesite, the different spirits out there were guiding me. They were like, oh no, keep going, you almost there. Go that way. Go this way. Turn up there. Okay, when you get that, you're going too far down that way. Like, or they, they were just talking and engaging, asking me, oh, well, who you looking for, or what you looking for, or why you doing this? Oh, we appreciate you. Okay, you talking about Mack Miller Park? I went there. Until literally they led me straight to his grave. And so, of course, he's standing out. Oh, you did find it. Okay. Because I sure forgot. Cause he's like, I don't get visitors out here. So I forgot where I was at too. But okay. And so that was the next experience. Another big lesson I learned from him is how to accept help. And that could be a lesson I was definitely just working on and just interacting with people in general. Because I'm doing this project by myself and not a lot of people were aware or had knowledge, that I did feel like a lot of that was on me to figure out, on me to find. But there were some things that it was like, I do need to ask other people for help. I do need to know where to go, what direction, who I need to ask, how I need to go about it. Came down to the interviews. At this point, I only had 2 interviews, so I was scheduling, still calling around, filling out different people, calling different people, asking, hey, I was told so-and-so told me, referred me to this person. Do you know someone? Just telling out feelers. And I remember Mack Miller, me and him were talking about it, and he was like, hey, do you still need interviews? And I said, yeah, I do. He's like, okay. Check back with me tomorrow. I said, okay. And literally, I want to say the very next night, just kind of getting it together. And he's like, hey, I got these interviews for you. Next thing I know, the room starts to fill with all these different people. He literally brought different spirits of people who went to the park. As they went around the room telling about the different experiences that they had, about how much they enjoyed the park, or telling their different unique stories about it. And what is so powerful and special about that moment is that 2 of those stories actually made the episode. I had people read their stories because I heard many different things. Like, I remember this one lady told me about a dance battle she happened to get involved in, and that was the first time she was able to dance and have the spotlight for herself. There was another guy who was a child at the time, and he and his cousins would being mischievous and end up checking out the girls' locker room. And he talked about the moment he saw someone naked and how it just changed his life forever. And I was just like, what? Just the mannish. This is like my grandma would say, oh, the boy just mannish. Like, I remember there was another lady who told me about how she had the best milkshake she ever had there. And so it was so many different unique perspectives. But the one that sent shivers down my spine, the hairs on the back of my neck, was the woman who told me about having her first kiss. What happened was, after everybody went around, told me the stories, I collected the different notes and stuff. And then the next day, I wrote out the stories that I was going to pick to use for the episode. So just for my notes, I titled them based off the people who told me their stories. So I would put their names and stuff. And so one story in particular was called Linda's First Kiss. I start finally getting callbacks from, the different elders I finally interviewed for the episode. One of the interviews ended up being these 2 women who basically ended up talking about the infamous Blueberry Hill. So for anybody who hasn't listened to the episode yet, which I highly recommend, go back to season 1 to listen to episode 5, which basically was the lover's lane of Mack Miller Park. This is where all the teenagers and the young adults would find they men or they women and have a little fun, if I say. And so in the interview, one of the women were saying how, they were young and they were kids, but they would always come there with their older cousin. The older cousin would scare them to not come up the hill because obviously they didn't want them seeing what they were doing up there. And so as the lady was talking, she's like, yeah, my cousin Linda, she would always tell me that, there were dead bodies up there, or that it was evil and it was scary. And I'm laughing at the story, but in the back of my mind, it clicked. I'm like, wait, did she say Linda? But after I concluded the interview, I started asking her questions because I remembered that. So I was like, hey, I remember you said about somebody named Linda. So she's like, oh yeah, Linda was my cousin and everything. And so I just happened to ask her. I'm like, so about Linda, how is she? Where is she at? She's like, oh girl, Linda been past your time. She's like, Linda been dead for about 10, 15 years now. Say what? Okay. And I kind of, in that moment, I didn't acknowledge it fully at first. But I just kind of, oh, okay. And then we continued the conversation until, I thanked them for, being part of the interview. I appreciate them. And then I left out the house. Y'all, I get to the car. I remember I had my notepad in the car with me, though I kept all the Mack Miller notes and stories and everything. And I flipped back through and I looked back at the story in particular and I'm like, Linda's first kiss. Linda gave me her story a week ago. Once again, like I said last week, at this big age, I don't believe in coincidences. At that moment, if I had any shred or piece of doubt left about my ability, about my gift, about what I was doing, about my work, it went away. And I was like, oh, this is real. My ancestor came behind me like, don't doubt this no more. And at that point, I hit the ground running.
When the enemy comes in to destroy your life and peace of mind, remember you're more than a conqueror. And this is what I want you to know. You got to act like you know that what my God said is true. You got to act like you know that what the Lord's word said is there's no hope and no one to turn to. Remember when the Lord will Mother, do you know? Act like you know it. I'm gonna act like I know it. I'm gonna act like I know it. I want to know I know it. I want to know I know it. How do you know it? How do you know it? Please pick me up. Pick me up. Hold me on the road. Hold me on solid ground. I know it. I'm gonna act like I know it. I'm gonna act like I know it. I'm gonna act like I know it. I know it. I know. That's my mom.
That was LaShawn Pace, rest in peace, featuring Karen Clark Shield and the Pace family with Act Like You Know. Of course, that song gonna sound a little familiar because it did go viral a couple years ago, but what's also amazing about that song is that it represents just the motivation and encouragement that Mack Miller gave me when creating that episode and doing the research, because I consistently ran into roadblocks and some upsets and some dead ends sometimes. And he would be right there each time, like, act like you know you gonna get through this. Act like you know what you're doing, because you do. Act like you know that you trust in the gifts God gave you to make this happen, because we believe in you. Act like you know that we trust you in telling our stories, in telling this story. That's why we're here and helping you every step of the way. So you need to act like you know, girl. And that's how you would be. So it's like having that energy around you, having that with you consistently. How can you not give it your all and make sure you're doing it correctly and doing it right? I knew at that moment I had a duty for this work to carry it and tell it as honestly, as authentically as I could. It was just a beautiful collection of the research, the oral history, the documentation, the spirituality. And honestly, I think that was the biggest lesson I did learn from him. How important every aspect of me had to be aligned, had to be trusted, had to be understood for me. So that way I could fulfill the work. I could honor the history. I could share their stories. And I was trusted in doing that. And that was an honor for people to trust you, for God to trust you, for me to trust myself. What I started to notice is that everything in that project came easy. Like, it was difficult and challenging, but when I found the information, when I found the context I was looking for, the pictures I was looking for, the people I was looking for, all of that just fell into place. And I knew it had everything to do with all of them helping me. Because one thing I learned through Mack Miller too was that when you move how God wants you to move, he lays out that path so clear for you. That really the hard part is you just walking it. And so many times we look at that path because it's unfamiliar, because we don't know what we're going to expect, because we're unsure, we have reservations, we're scared, or, due to our experiences, we may not often just go and listen and follow. But when you trust in what is instilled in you, when you trust in what God made you for, it makes that walk more doable. Or what I learned to do is to do it scared, to do it nervous, to do it unsure, to do it when you don't see the whole vision. Like they say, take a leap of faith. Like in that, really lean on that faith. Have that mustard seed and go for it. Just do it. And every time I just did it, everything just fell into place. All my ancestors had a very strong hand in that. So ashe, ashe, ashe to you. And I do want to keep my word and give you guys an update regarding the Black Podcast Awards, because as I mentioned earlier in the month, I was nominated for Best Culture Podcast, and unfortunately Soul Vibrant didn't win. Maybe it's just the optimistic energy of me, but this loss means there are bigger wins coming and bigger awards coming. So I'm excited to see, what is next. But regardless, thank you all for your love, for your support, for your engagement, because I wouldn't even made that far without you guys connecting. So thank you so much. So on that note, y'all, if you want to connect with me, I am on all social medias at Queen Lady AC on Facebook.com, on Instagram and Threads. It is _ I am Lady AC. On Substack, it is Lady AC, and on X or Twitter, it is capital I am Lady AC. Once and finally, y'all, happy Hoodoo Heritage Month. I'm excited to meet you guys next week because it's going to be a very special episode because it's our anniversary. Can you believe it? A year already? Yep, next week. So stay tuned for that. I have a special episode regarding and honoring that. So until then, y'all, bye.